In today's world, we would be remiss to talk about customer experience without the tech that drives high impact results. What innovations are businesses using to deliver outstanding customer experiences? Join us as we talk about digital transformation in CX. Our first panelist spent 4 years leading the Meta APAC gaming team before becoming Meta's first Southeast Asian female vice president in APAC. I am delighted to bring you the vice president of the Global Business Group for the Asia Pacific region at Meta, Karen Teo. Our next panelist is a seasoned commercial leader with an MBA and over 20 years of experience in sales and business development. Let us all welcome the commercial director at Utopia Analytics, Tuukka Josefsson. Our third panelist is a tech entrepreneur with a master's degree in IT and having applied tech to various domains since he was 16. He eventually ran a regional fintech business for one of the largest solutions providers in the world. I am glad to have with us the co-founder and CEO of Mangtas, Wouter Delbaere. To complete our panel of speakers, we have a CX expert who has spent more than 15 years in ICT research and consulting. Thrilled to be joined by the director and head of the Asia Pacific Customer Experience Practice at Frost & Sullivan, Krishna Baidya. Now, one of the truths we established in the other plenary sessions is how a large-scale, unprecedented event, such as the pandemic, accelerated the pace of advancement in domains which called for alternatives to in-person interactions. Hence, it doesn't come as a surprise that digital transformation has made great headway in the recent years. Now, we'll start off with Krishna. Krishna, what we would like to understand based on research done by Frost & Sullivan are the following. First, how were technology efforts which aimed at improving CX progressing before the pandemic? And next, what does digital transformation in CX mean today?
Thanks, Alex. It's a great pleasure to be here. Look, demand for customer service has increased rapidly in the recent years. Following the pandemic, customers are more willing than before to embrace digital. It's the preferred options for almost 1/3 of the consumers and often seen as essential for escalations. During the pandemic, digital channels such as the web chat, instant messaging, virtual assistants, the bots, and the video, it kind of reported the highest uptake. As customer expectations grow and their journeys become more complex, the ability to recognize and remember where customers are and what they are trying to accomplish becomes extremely critical. Brands are revamping old interaction channels, but their transformation is no longer about shifting. It's about combining, it's about crossing over with context. During the pandemic, enterprises had no choice but to go digital. Close to 90% of enterprise confirmed accelerated digitization and automation effort in their organizations. Establishing a 360-degree view of customers, adding intelligent self-service channels infused with conversational AI and analytics in improving customer engagement and operational efficiencies quickly became the strategic imperative. Brands are harnessing the power of automation, data, the cloud to develop personalized CX while optimizing multi-channel workflow efficiencies, yet ensuring security. In the next 12 months, organizations expect the majority of customer interactions to be managed through some sort of automation. Cloud technology made CX service delivery from remote a possibility. It kept agents productive and business operating. So by 2023, 80% of CX applications are expected to be in the cloud. Acceleration of cloud adoption also made the collection of relevant data more effortless. It also helped push data silos closer and fully operationalizing data much easier. Brands can leverage and analyze large amounts of real-time data to better understand their customers and create more personalized experience. AI tools applied to the right data to understand customer sentiment, behavioral analytics, and real-time interactions insights helps agents perform better and establish a deeper engagement. Industry today harness a set of AI technologies to infuse intelligence across the customer contact landscape. These technologies mean that customers can speak naturally, either through voice or text, and AI-based conversational agents can understand and respond appropriately. Self-service driven by AI chatbots can more quickly and correctly handle queries and make the experience an effective and engaging one. Sentiment analysis can be used to identify customer emotions and advise an agents on how to respond. Generally, agents are freed up to deal with more complex issues, which has been shown to be more rewarding for agents, leading to a reduction in staff turnover. Beyond enabling full customer self-service, contact center automation also assists with the after-call work, updating the customer records, onboarding new customers, ensuring the proper compliance check, and many more things. As AI research has progressed, process automation has evolved to be a hyper automation. So this is again a judicious blend of AI, machine learning, RPA, and the IVAs. Hyper automation moves an organizations from viewing CX in application silos to holistically viewing the workflows and customer journey as opportunities to understand and modernize older, the rule-based self-service automation. As organizations look to augment their CX capabilities, security must be an essential element of their CX strategies. It can't be an afterthought. Security must be thought through while designing customer journey and also the employee experience. Brands adding innovative solutions and technologies is one positive step, but successfully turning those additions into a fruitful and consistent experience for customers and agents is what going to be the defining moment. This will be possible only when humans are at the center of the CX design and operations, leveraging the best technology available to enhance their skills and create powerful, lasting connections with customers and employees. I hope that gives you some kind of a glimpse in the future.
Thank you so much, Krishna. I want to highlight what you said, that most companies or organizations have focused on shifting their expectations and shifting their processes. But what you have just given us insight now is the fact that we can customize it and combine it in order to adapt. And I just want to highlight that. So thank you. Now, we heard from Krishna on how customer expectations have shifted, perhaps more from the perspective of consumers. Now, how has the CX landscape changed since the pandemic happened? I want to direct this question to you, Karen.
Hi, Alex. Happy to answer that. But honestly, whatever Krishna just said, like all that, I don't know if I can add a lot more to that. The truth is, and I may iterate some of Krishna's point, when the pandemic happened, you saw a shift in consumer behavior, right? From discovery to all the way to purchase. Everyone was more open to, and obviously not even just more open. They were just, they had no choice, really. We all had no choice. We had to bring the entire journey, shift it from actual physical retail, actual physical locations to the online space. And so as part of that, again, very much along what Krishna has just shared, with that shift came a shift in expectations. And the shift in expectations definitely influenced the CX landscape. People were obviously not just embracing new technologies and new digital connections, not even just in commerce or in products and services, but even amongst themselves, right? People are connecting with loved ones, with friends. And so the expectation was like, if I connect with my friends and families digitally, let's say in messaging, we saw a big rise, a big spike in messaging. People started to have the expectation in terms of how they want to connect with businesses as well. So we saw that the expectations in messaging increased by the time spent on messaging increased by more than 50% in a month. Voice and video calling in Messenger and WhatsApp also doubled. So with all that, one of the things that we've noticed was businesses really started to get into the business messaging space. It provides personalized approach to every customer, but with the ability to do it at scale. And with this change and this shift, this technology, and I'm just going to focus on that piece for now because it's just so important. It's very current tech. That essentially creates expectations on ensuring that customers have that fast turnaround, which is why Krishna is now saying AI is important. Automated responses is important. So I'm very much aligned to what Krishna has shared. Responsiveness, providing customers with visibility and transparency, while thinking about all the information that they will be seeking. Like the proactiveness, I think is super important. So having AI plus a human element to try to provide that holistic sense of really taking care of the customers, I think we're seeing a lot more of that. And lastly, something that's been here since the beginning of time when it comes to building relationships and engaging with your customers, it's building trust and affinity, right? And showing that care and empathy and being proactive. That fortunately has not changed. I think that's important when in the CX landscape.
Oh, I absolutely 100% agree with you, Karen. The trust must be there. And I love what you said, that the shift in expectations. And yes, I do agree that the messaging has increased undoubtedly, probably even more than 50%, but I do believe your numbers are right as well. And trying to shift that expectations based on their personal experiences as well. So yeah, absolutely, I 100% agree. Moving on now, there are undoubtedly a lot of innovations that are sweeping the technology space. I'm sure you can imagine. Now, Tuukka, what can you share with us on how artificial intelligence and machine learning are changing CX, and what other technology trends are bound to impact CX in the next, say, 12 months?
Hi, Alex. I think this is a really exciting area, like Krishna and Karen already outlined. I think the rise of this kind of context-aware AI will certainly have an impact. These kinds of advanced AI solutions can already learn from earlier human decisions automatically and quite accurately mimic human decision making. And this actually makes AI not only more effective and efficient in automating these kinds of routine, labor-intensive tasks, but it also brings new opportunities for something that has not been possible or commercially feasible before. So if we think about, for example, quality assurance or auditing of customer service interactions, say on inbound or outbound calls, how this traditionally would be done on the QA side is that people listen to small percentage of the recorded calls and check if certain things have been said or not. And now it is actually possible to train an AI model, not only to check what has or has not been said, which is obviously great, but also to recognize these kind of patterns in the calls that can actually be used to improve operations. So, for example, identifying and fixing the root causes of the calls rather than treating the symptoms over and over again. Analyzing the calls with advanced AI can also help provide tangible feedback for customer service agents, for example, by identifying those elements in the calls that have the most impact on CSAT or NPS. So I would say that these kind of advanced AI-based solutions that can mimic human decision making and, like Karen said, do this at scale in very high accuracy and quality are bound to make an impact on in the coming months and years.
You know, Tuukka, you're right.
And
this is a
maybe
very
if I may
exciting...
add to that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Sorry, maybe if I may add to that. So you're talking about emerging technologies and things that will impact CX. And I think something not to be underestimated, of course, AI is one critical aspect to all of this, but also metaverses, virtual reality and all that. I think that's going to really disrupt the landscape in the next 12 months as well. Like even us today, like we just started a startup a year ago, and we have a virtual office. And just this idea that we're in a virtual space where it's more natural as if we're communicating physically, I think that will really take CX to the next level as well. So I think there are many, many other technologies out there that will really disrupt.
Thank you, Wouter. And also, Tuukka, I have to agree, this really was an exciting question, an exciting answer that we got from you. Personally, I think I'm a little bit shocked and a little bit surprised also at the capabilities of advanced AI. I think back then, as you said before, this was impossible and people saw the limitations of AI. But the past 2 years, a lot has shifted, a lot has changed, the advancement of technology, that we have somewhat of an opportunity to balance the human touch and AI, which is great for businesses and organizations that are coming out of this phenomena. Now, moving on, at this point, you have all pertained to data as a critical piece in delivering excellent customer experience. Now, how can data be best harnessed amid digital transformation? We're going back to you, Krishna. Can you please share some of the ways?
Look, I think we have really come a very, very long way. High predictability of demographic data in analytics model is now being augmented by data from all the external sources, the likes of social networking, the Google, the Facebook, the Instagram, and whatnot, wherever we are interacting. So this kind of provides more insights into consumer behavior and user patterns. So organizations can combine these data sets into models used to inform the design of products, services, and the customer journey. So leveraging these technologies can actually provide a great insight into customer journey, and that gives us opportunities to improve CX. Organizations, however, will really need to balance skills and platforms to analyze this data to better understand the journeys and identify ways to achieve the business outcomes at various stages of the journey. So, for example, by offering the human touch to improve conversion rates when during a certain type of sales. So when a conversation happening, you know which direction it's going, and based on that, probably you can do the right kind of intervene on a digital channels to a human assistant. So the capability for data analysis in the area is also helping us, the organizations, in many other ways. It helps us to identify transition points between the channels that can and should exist. It also helps us to design and connect channels to reduce friction and effort. It allows customers the choice to go into the right options at the right time, which is for them. It's not about the organizations, it's about the customers. And of course, it allows us to look back on things which has happened and kind of get them to address those issues. So when you're talking about customers, it's really about understanding their journey. So knowing the right context based on customers' journey, organizations can go beyond what customers are telling them and understand what they're actually doing. And that's possible only because now we are able to leverage all this data. And because of that, it kind of enables organizations to deliver a very proactive and personalized CX. And of course, it's not only about what is being delivered for the customers, but it's also about those customer service agents, because now they get those insights, they get the right context. And at the same time, the AI and the analytics can get them the right kind of insights, which they can then communicate to the customers. So they can be always offering the right solutions at the right time, at the right channel, and whether it's be it the chat or in the going forward in metaverse or not. So it's always the right experience for the customers.
Love that, Krishna. I think what I want to reiterate from what you said is, data, it's immense. And I'm sure it has tripled, doubled in the past couple of years. But what you said is the right data, the right channel, the right time, because as we all know, each journey is very different. Now, I have a follow-up question related to what we just talked about with Krishna, which is data is always a sensitive topic, as you know, to consumers. And at some point, we have all wondered, where does my personal information go? Who sees it? What's being done with it? And at least once, I can speak for myself as well, we've hesitated to share our data because this is not always used to improve our customer experience. Then we choose another company and we go with another brand. Now, Karen, what are your thoughts on brand loyalty and customer retention today?
I'm listening to everyone talk here, and it's really exciting stuff that everyone's talking about. New technology, like Wouter talking about the metaverse, which I'm a big fan and really excited about as well. The use of data is important in understanding customers from a giving value back perspective. But I want to I want to iterate the importance of and I'm a big fan of fundamentals, right? And things that no matter what technology evolves into, the basics need to be right. And the basics that need to be right really is I do think that brands, in order to build that loyalty with their customers, isn't just about the usual getting points or a loyalty. It's very tactical, and that's great. Those things work really well, and it contributes to even your understanding of your customers. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I do think that it's important to think about the customer experience, right? Whether it's all the way from price to product to convenience to availability to faster delivery, right? I talked about how customers are expecting more rapid responses. They want things faster, they want things easier, and at the same time, they want to have a lot more choices. So how do you, amongst that choice, how do you rise above everyone else? Really is about making the customer feel that their needs are being met when they want it and where they want it. So the trends that I shared earlier, the trends that changed the CX landscape during the pandemic, everything is going online. You fast forward to today, where customers are now going back to physical stores, right? But the beauty of that is, even though the physical stores have opened up and the world has opened up more or less, and customers are going back to physical, when you ask customers, and we did this survey, majority of customers are saying, hey, I'm still gonna continue doing my shopping and I still want to rely on mobile currently, or the digital connections that I've built during the pandemic to experience my relationship with all these different brands and shops and businesses. So I do think that it's important for us to go to where the customers are today already. So the social aspect, right? The part where they are very social first during the pandemic. They're like, okay, who's buying what? Where do I see on social media, on digital connections? We need to be where they are. So I would say we have to, the 4 winning strategies include the need to be social, be there for them, be mobile friendly, be very clear about what their personal needs are. And then how do you do that at scale? As I mentioned before, be conversational. So things like as much as we rely on AI, and before that we talk about bots, and how the beauty of AI now is making people feel like whoever they're talking to on messaging is like a real person, that conversational aspect where it fuels that sense of personalization is important. To Wouter's point, I think down the road, the sense of immersiveness, I think is important. People are already saying, hey, I do think that AR is a great bridge between online and offline. I want to see more of that. How do I experience products and services in the comfort of my home before I actually buy them? And AR is a good stepping stone. And lastly, be purpose-driven, right? At the end of the day, a brand builds loyalty not just through the tangibles, but also through the intangibles, like emotional connection, purpose and mission. So I think these are all important aspects to building brand loyalty.
Yes, I love everything that you said, Karen. I super align with everything that you have just stated. Really back to basics, and when you go back to basics, and I think it's really making sure that the customer is heard, so that you can give them what they want, where they want it, and how they want it. Now, I am understanding that customer experience is as important as employee experience. Now, with employees helping shape a company's culture, Wouter, how does culture play a part in an organization's digital transformation?
So culture is something I'm extremely passionate about. It's really the DNA of a company, right? I think if you don't get the culture right, your experiences won't be right. And I really liked how Karen talked about fundamentals and meeting customer needs, right? We talk about all of this new technology, it's extremely exciting, right? But the fundamentals need to be in place. You can't just activate the technology and hope it will function, right? And it's really about, and taking a step back, what I'm personally passionate about is a culture of innovation, but also a culture of agility. Now, before I zoom into that a little bit, I think there's a very interesting stat that I refer to quite often, and that is 70% of projects fail, right? And I'll map that back to your question, a digital transformation is ultimately a project. And what's really remarkable is if that's executed in an agile fashion, your chances of success go up 71%. Now, really, what that really says is if you're going on a digital transformation journey, be agile. Now, linking that back to the culture question, going agile is something I have quite a bit of experience with. And it's not something you just tell people to do, right? You don't go and say, hey, go, this is now the agile methodology, go execute it. What you actually do is you start from the top. It's actually a philosophy. It's a way of life. It's the way you execute, it's how you behave. And really, if you want to instill agility into the company, it has to start with the founders, has to start with the executives, and that needs to then trickle down. And that needs to become a culture. So back to your question, what's the importance of culture when it comes to transformation? It's everything, right? Because ultimately execution matters. All these ideas are great. You can sit in your ivory tower and come up with a 2-year plan. But the reality is, the moment you start executing on that plan, it's already outdated. Your customer behavior has changed, right? And actually the technology has evolved. So you have to be extremely agile, and it's not something you can do without the right culture. So culture is absolutely everything when it comes to delivering with success and delivering the right outcomes to the customers.
Absolutely, Wouter. Thank you. And I think what we're hearing also from Wouter is the fact we have to think long term. If you start thinking short term, there's no longevity. It's not sustainable. And so we go back to the fundamentals, like Karen said, back to the basics. And it starts with culture from the very top down to the very bottom. Now, at this point, I'm eager to hear about best practices. Tuukka, what are the best practices companies can do to leverage these disruptive trends? And what are some examples that you have seen for yourself?
Yeah, so maybe to continue a little bit on this topic of culture and also leadership, because I 100% agree, getting the fundamentals right is crucial. So I really think it's a strategic decision whether to kind of innovate or embrace these new technologies and to lead rather than follow. And really it requires this kind of vision, commitment from top down, very senior level sponsors, and of course the dedicated resources. So I would say the first best practice would be to enable and empower the people and kind of cultivate the right mindset in the organization. Just like Wouter said just before. Now, if and when this is in place, then I would look for examples how leading companies in various industries are already leveraging AI and other technologies across several use cases, not just CX. So I would really look beyond CX. I think this kind of horizontal view or analysis will provide great insight of what's actually possible already today, and that will help you narrow down on the kind of like most suitable use cases and those best practices that you can replicate then in your organization. Now, of course, there's always the age-old question of whether to build or buy. Mm-hmm. And I think companies really need to look at this kind of objectively, because just because you have a strong IT and data science team, for example, it doesn't mean that you can or you should build something. In my experience, these kind of best results are achieved in cases where there's service providers are actually complementing the internal capabilities of a company. And personally, I'm a very strong advocate of kind of like piloting and running various proofs of concepts, because I think only by really kind of like investing in trialing these new technologies and approaches can organizations really learn and ultimately achieve, real breakthroughs in its operations. And going back to the very first point, as said, this also requires the right support, the resources, and the mindset throughout the organization.
Love that mindset. Mindset before resources also, I think, because the mindset can change your resources and how you attack your resources and getting those available. But yeah, thank you, Tuukka. Aggregating all these learnings from all of you as the industry CX experts, is it imperative for companies to revisit their digital transformation strategy? And if so, why? We'd like to go to you, Wouter. What is your take on this?
And before I answer, Tuukka, I love those answers. Really, really well summarized. I really like not reinventing the wheel. I stumble on this all the time. Like, oh, it has been done somewhere. It's very unlikely that what you're trying to do has not been done before. You just have to nuance it to your specific situation, right? But maybe to answer your question, should you basically go and review your digital transformations, right? And the answer is absolutely. But that doesn't not just today. I guess today it's double yes. Even before the pandemic, I would say yes. And I've seen so many transformations fail because they sit in their ivory towers. They come up with a 7-year plan, and then after 5 years, they realize it's already outdated. They never checked with their customers. It's such a common story, right? So back to basically what I was saying earlier about being agile, 100%. But now it's even more applicable than ever before. Like, I think one very interesting stat that I also really like is since the pandemic, within the very first month, 60% of businesses had to transform their tech. And that's to survive, right? And this is now 2 years later, right? Since then, there are close to 2 billion people online now in Asia alone. People want to work from home. Companies need to be ready for that because they'll use their staff if they don't. If anything, they're actually more productive if they do it well. So everything, the behavior has changed. If you're in the middle of a transformation program, what you thought about 2 years ago may not at all be relevant anymore. Maybe not even the use case, but maybe not even the execution of it, right? So now it's double, triple relevant. But on top of that, there's technology. And the tech is evolving so quickly in such an exciting way. Mainly the software, right? People are innovating extensively, but also hardware. Like our ability to just process things that quick. Like you mentioned the data fact, 90% of the data was created in the last 2 years, as an example, right? That's only possible because of how we're all connected now, how fast we process everything. And we now have such a wide range of technologies available. So should you review your transformation? Absolutely, because things change. Not only your customers change, the behavior changes, the technology changes. You got to be agile and just take very incremental steps and see what's right, and always check back with your customers, right? Like, hey, involve the customers in the journey and then just adapt. And back to Tuukka's point, don't reinvent any wheels. If some people made some groundbreaking progress elsewhere, copy and apply it to your problem.
That's right. Makes life easier, basically, for them. And as you said, goes with agility. So I love everything that you said, Wouter. Also, it combines with what Tuukka said, and also looking and making sure that we don't fall back to our past mistakes where we're just looking to survive. In any business, the main objective is to thrive. And doing that is by making sure you're well aware of the new technology that's available and making sure that you're up to date with it. So yeah, I 100% also agree with the both of you. Now, with digital transformation starting and ending with people, business owners as well, employees, customers, Krishna, how can companies truly humanize CX amid digital transformation?
Look, this is an excellent question. And I think when we talk about digital transformation, we often tend to get so caught up with what do you think about that particular technology. But end of the day, what we really need to keep in mind is it's not about the technology alone. It's about what is it for? What does it do, right? And from that perspective, I think earlier Tuukka and Wouter was talking about all the kind of things, all the kind of approaches and learning from best practice and everything. We really need to keep in mind that, what got us here is not going to get us there, the next step. And that next step is always changing. And from that journey, I think it's critical that, the human aspect, whatever we do, in the center of that needs to be human. And when you talk about CX in particular, there's two sides of the equation. One is, of course, the employee side of the things, customer side of things, right? So again, going back, it's a timely reminder would be to all the digital practitioners that look, the customers and the employees are human beings, and they really need to be connected on a human level. And if you just think about the customers, what we want, right? We always wanted the choices. We wanted our convenient way of doing things with business. We wanted that kind of convenience and the ease of doing things, right? And most organizations, they got us the channels, right? Now, some of them are kind of offering up to 9 channels, but this is not really about the channels. The key here is effectiveness of those contacts, right? And also how comfortable, how confident I feel about those particular channels. Most of us will be actually put off if we don't get the right outcome as we seek in those interactions, right? So, and when that happens, irrespective of whether you give me channels, you give me those automation, I want a human to be on the other side of my call. And again, it may be very tempting to push customers to chatbots when the physical contacts channels are not available. When employees are working remotely, they have been struggling with contact volumes. So at the same time, what happens is human-led conversation could also take longer if the employees doesn't have the right kind of skill. They don't necessarily have the right knowledge. They don't necessarily have the right kind of context to understand what's going on in the customer's mind. So then we'll kind of struggle. So either approach will be counterproductive if it is not part of a well thought of human-centered CX design that drives a new digital strategy and augments the capabilities of CX employee. And I really want to emphasize here the augmentation part, because what we really now know with the technology, we are able to get those right kind of information right to the door of those employees who are handling those calls. The operating models then required to successfully deliver effortless customer interactions must bring together digital automation, augmented intelligence, and human-assisted service in a very conscious and orchestrated manner. So the customer journey with humans at the center of all interactions. I hope that kind of summarizes.
Yes, it does, Krishna. I loved everything you said, but what I want to emphasize from what you just shared with us is the fact that, we may be boggled by so many technological advances and, the products that are available and making sure that we have these new advances. But I love what you said, that it's not about having them, but it's why you have them, which basically is to enhance the customer experience. Digital transformation, is not a phase nor a few steps, but it is a journey, as our 4 panelists have said. Neither is it a one-size-fits-all framework that organizations can quickly implement and expect great returns. Digital transformation is an evolution that companies have to inevitably go through to fulfill customer expectations every step of the way, no matter where they are in their journey. And that's a wrap on the 3rd and final plenary session of Transformative CX Talks. Thank you to our CX leaders and experts for their insights on digital transformation in the CX space. I'm your host, Alex E.